Hello, my name is Anna and welcome to Astushkina Cakes YouTube channel. On this channel I teach cake artists how to create modern cake designs and flowers using wafer paper. And in this video I'm going to answer some of your questions that I ask you over on Instagram, and I think it's going to be helpful for you whether you are just starting out with wafer paper or you're a seasoned cake designer. A lot of questions were about types of wafer paper or grades of wafer paper, how to tell what grade or gauge of wafer paper you have if it doesn't say on a package. And there are three types of wafer paper as far as I know. Zero grade wafer paper, which is around 0.22 millimeters. That's the most thin one or the most flexible wafer paper. I have the one by Oasis Supply brand, and you can buy your wafer paper on Amazon or many cake supply stores carry that. The other option is premium wafer paper or AD grade wafer paper, which is around 0.27 millimeters to 0.35 millimeters. I have this one by Saracino brand, and both of these wafer papers, 0.22 and 0.27 millimeters, they look the same. Both types has two sides. One side is bumpy and the other side is shiny. So you can see here it is the same, bumpy and shiny. And when you're touching both wafer paper, it's hard to tell which one is which, but if you're going to use any wafer paper conditioner and you're going to place two types of wafer paper together and saturate with your conditioner, you will tell the difference how quick wafer paper absorbs the moisture. And for making flowers, as I teach in my Wafer Paper Academy, or you can find here on my YouTube channel, I prefer to use either 0 grade or AD grade, so any wafer paper from 0.22 millimeters to 0.35 millimeters, if it has two sides, one side is bumpy, the other side is smooth, will work. So all you need is to make sure that your wafer paper is relatively fresh and you can cut it and you can shape it. The third type and the last type of wafer paper or grade of wafer paper is DD grade double thickness or wafer paper cardstock. Usually is around 0.60, 0.70 millimeters. And you can clearly tell that you have wafer paper cardstock or double thickness. You can tell because it has only shiny side. It has no bumpy sides and it's relatively thick. So compared to regular 0.27 millimeters, you can see how soft this is. And if you're going to take 0.60 millimeters, it doesn't want to bend and it's very dry and it looks like a cardstock. So it is very thick. I have wafer paper cardstock also by Saracino brand, but you can find any other brands, even Oasis Supply and other brands over on Amazon or at your local cake supply stores. Another common question or group of questions is about high humidity and living in India or other places where your humidity is very high, and a lot of you have concerns about wafer paper maintaining structure, or is it going to work when it's hot and humid, and what to do and how to deal with that. Temperature wise, like when it's hot or when it's cold, nothing is going to happen to your wafer paper because wafer paper made out of potato starch, oil and water, so none of the ingredients are going to melt if it's hot or freeze if it's cold, compared to buttercream or ganache, which is not suitable for using in very high temperatures. Your humidity level may affect your wafer paper, but if you're using my wafer paper conditioner, my recipe, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a second, your wafer paper actually is going to get softer and flexible and easier to work with if it's high humidity. High humidity, I mean above 65%. And wafer paper is not going to disintegrate or melt if it's hot and humid outside. In my experience, when I lived in Florida and I used to create a lot of wedding cakes and deliver them to open venues, outside venues, when it's actually hot and almost 100% humidity, wafer paper is more stable compared to gum paste or sugar paste, because gum paste contains a lot of sugar, which is a humectant, and it's going to absorb all the moisture, and sugar flowers tend to melt or like wilt much quicker compared to wafer paper. So if you live in a very hot, humid climate and you have concerns about your wafer paper not holding its shape, I can give you just a few quick suggestions. First of all, know your humidity. Actually know your humidity. Anything above 65 or 75%. First thing you need to do if you're using my wafer paper conditioner, this AC Tonic, use less glycerin. Then when you're making your flowers, use more cornstarch, because then you will create this protective layer on top of your wafer paper and help wafer paper to hold its shape. Another suggestion I'll give you is to make your petals in advance and let them dry, like I have here for my tulips. Usually I make my petals in advance, I leave them to dry, and then when I need to assemble my flower, I can shape it, and I can assemble my flower when I need it. Like I have here my beautiful parrot tulip, and then when it's been drying or sitting in somewhere controlled humidity, you can put it on a cake, you can put it in a humid environment, and it's not going to become misshapen or change its shape after it's dry. You can see behind me I have quite a few wafer paper decorated cakes, and some of these cakes has been in my cupboard for a couple of years, and during this period my temperature and my user change from very hot to very cold and back, and my humidity changes today is 35%. During the summer period when it's raining, it's getting up to 85%, and because it's already been dry when I put it over there, it's not going to become misshapen. And another way to protect your wafer paper or make sure it's going to stay and hold its shape is to use something like silica gel packets. This particular type is food grade, so I can put them next to my flowers and next to my cakes, and I don't need to worry about the silica gel touching my cakes or flowers. And usually when I make my flowers, I keep the silica gels in a box, in a Tupperware container with my flowers, well, all my wafer paper decorations, and I change them once in a while when I know that my humidity is getting a little bit too high. Next question was about avoiding using alcohol in wafer paper creations and what are the alternatives to alcohol. I should say I rarely use alcohol with wafer paper because I do not like how brittle wafer paper gets when you use alcohol, because of the, I guess, chemical reaction between alcohol and starches in wafer paper. It gets so brittle and so hard to manage. I prefer not to use alcohol. And for me, my recipe or the way I make my wafer paper flexible is I make my AC Tonic, which stands for Astashkina Cakes. And you can download the recipe in the description, but basically to make this AC Tonic, my wafer paper conditioner, I use food grade glycerin and distilled water. And as I already told you, if you live in a humid environment, you can use less glycerin. If you live in a dry environment, you can use more glycerin. And if you wanted to learn how to troubleshoot your wafer paper conditioner and make sure that your wafer paper flowers stay flexible in any environment, any condition, I teach a lot about that in my Wafer Paper Academy, and we are talking how to manage your wafer paper and how to find the perfect combination of these ingredients for your own AC Tonic recipe for your wafer paper creations. Another alternative, if you don't want to use alcohol and you don't have access to glycerin, or you maybe do not like working with my recipe, you can use just regular steam. So this is a cold steamer or facial steamer. You can use that to steam your wafer paper and make it flexible. And another option is to use an airbrush, so you can airbrush your Wafer paper. You can cut your petal, airbrush your petal, and then shape it immediately, because the goal with working with Wafer paper, how to make it flexible, you need to introduce some moisture, or you need to introduce enough moisture to your Wafer paper so it becomes relatively flexible and relatively soft without melting. And the amount of moisture depends again on your humidity and the recipe you use. Either you're going to use acid tonic, you're using just a steamer or airbrush. If you want to avoid alcohol, you have these options to try making your Wafer paper flexible. And another question is all about placing your Wafer paper in the fridge or placing your cake in the fridge, and how you can do that. You can watch my previous tutorials from the next week when I show you in a lot of details that you can actually put your Wafer paper in the fridge, you can put it on a cake, and you can do whatever you want, again, if you know your humidity. And if you're going to store your Wafer paper cakes in the fridge and your humidity level is relatively high, above 65%, what you can do is you can put your Wafer paper decorations on your cake and then place your cake in a cardboard box, and the box with the cake, place it in the fridge, because Wafer paper can melt because of the condensation caused by the difference in the humidity in the fridge and outside. And when you're going to take your cake out of the fridge in a cardboard box and place it on your table, the condensation or extra moisture from your cake or from the environment in your place is going to be absorbed by that box and not going to be sitting or melting your Wafer paper. So that's another option if your fridge is relatively humid. If you want to place your Wafer paper on a buttercream cake, it depends on the recipe you use. I personally prefer to use Italian meringue buttercream, but on the outside all my cakes are covered in fondant. That's my personal preference. I do not make buttercream cakes. And if you're working with buttercream and you want to place your Wafer paper on the buttercream and your humidity below 65%, you can do that with any recipe. It should be totally fine. Again, just make a test. Do not take my word for that. Every environment, humidity, Wafer paper, buttercream recipes, countries, people are different, so test it for yourself. You don't need to create a cake to do a test. You can just grab a spoon of your buttercream, stick a piece of Wafer paper, put it in the fridge and check in 24 hours whether it's going to melt or not. Just try for yourself, try your recipe, try your Wafer paper, try your conditioner, and make sure it is safe before you're going to commit to making a full cake. So for me, I work with fondant covered cakes and I stick my Wafer paper on fondant covered cakes and I place it in the fridge. Knock on wood, I never had any issues, but because I know my humidity. I know that I sound like a broken record, but you need to know your humidity, because when you know, you can adjust your Wafer paper conditioner recipe. You can use more cornstarch if your humidity is high and you're making flowers. You can make your petals in advance. If you have high humidity, you're concerned about your Wafer paper melting in your fridge, just do not put Wafer paper in the fridge on your cake. And if you're going to place your Wafer paper decorations of flowers on a buttercream cake, you can use a touch of cocoa butter and cover the back side of your flower. Like I have here, you can cover the back side of your flower with cocoa butter or melted chocolate to create like a barrier between your Wafer paper and your buttercream, to make sure it is not going to reabsorb the moisture or affect each other. And I have a tutorial on my channel where I show you in a lot of details how to do that, so you can click and watch that. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about working with Wafer paper, how to put it on the fridge, what conditioner I use. You can download everything in the description. And I hope I'll see you next week when we are going to create another beautiful flower using Wafer paper. My name is Anna and thank you so much for watching.